So we're here with another episode of the Made in New York podcast with Sergio of Colorworks. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and who you are.
Well, welcome. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Coming in and breaking bread with us and helping us tell our story. A little bit about me. So I'm a partner now here at Colorworks. Just a little bit. Colorworks is a hybrid multimedia branding agency, and I say hybrid because I always said that we were creating something that was undone. Being that each of my partners came from 10 years of background experience. I came from music and media. My partner JC came from the design world, and my partner Papa came from the apparel world. And we created this hybrid agency and now hybrid facility, which is where we are today, that encompasses all three things, heavily with the concept of Made in New York. Made in New York, Made in Queens. That was always my vision. I love the city. I love Brooklyn. I love LA. I love everywhere in USA. But I have something that I'm a New Yorker all my life. I've been a New York Queens kid all my life, and we had this vision, like a lot of us New Yorkers, of creating a one-stop shop. And here we are today, almost there, where we have a facility now that has all of these amazing services, and now creating a platform for more artists to come in. A little bit of my background now, to fast forward to Colorworks, is I started as a producer many moons ago in my late teens, early 20s, when hip hop was classic. Late 90s, early 2000, and I was heavily infused with hip hop and the culture. I loved every element. I loved breakdancing. I might have broken a knee or two trying to do windmills and head spins growing up, and seeing my cousins do it in the park. I grew up very near the X-Men. Shout out to Joey Sinister and Rob Swift and Rock Raider and those guys. So I was a little kid watching these guys turn the world as the biggest DJs, and then later on in life they had a big song with Maroon 5, and to see them, so hip hop was introduced to me, breakdancing was introduced to me. I guess most of my friends were in the park doing things they weren't supposed to, and I was just watching guys scratching records and looking at magazines. My apologies, let me shut that down. But it was a good time for me. So my influence definitely was hip hop, Queens, and then very young I had the vision of then following that suit, and I started making beats with a friend of mine, and we started producing out of our house. And then production eventually moved on to engineering, being I was the only kid that could afford to buy the equipment in the neighborhood, and I was always hustling at an early age. Looking for a way to grow, and I went and bought the equipment, and I was producing. It's a funny story. I bought my first SP1200 from Juju of the Beatnuts. So I'll rewind. As a Latino in hip hop, the biggest influence I had was Big Pun, right? So Big Pun was the first artist to go platinum. Right. So to us as Latinos in the late 90s, we got Big Pun.
And there were no other. I mean, it was Fat Joe, but there was no other Latino rappers at that time.
But nobody had done platinum.
Right.
At that time, platinum and gold was an achievable thing.
Yeah,
Everyone was doing it.
There
was no internet. There was, but there wasn't those numbers inflated. Nobody was beating sound scan and doing all the crap they do now. So when I seen Pun go platinum, and I knew it was, he was on that off the books, boom, boom, and I had met Juju and those guys. My partner and I wanted to buy the drum machine, and we had studied. People like DJ Premier, people like Juju had used a machine called the SP1200. It's a classic EMU 8-bit sound machine. And for these producers that don't know, that are using Fruity Loops and all this other cool stuff now, 24-bit, we were doing 8-bit crunchy sound. And this is how Premier was making beats. That's how Juju was making beats, and that's how he made that beat. People will remember the sample from a J-Lo song, but it was really the Beatnuts, featuring Big Pun.
Right.
And off this record, his name grew up, and he became. So I bought my first beat machine with my partner C-True, square deal. We bought the SP1200 that Juju made off the books. So I felt like, wow, I own the machine that made the record for the first platinum artist.
Do you still have it?
We still have it.
Okay.
We
Do you still use it?
We still actually do use it. We sync it because something interesting about music and old gear is because it's analog, and we'll talk about analog digital.
Yeah.
But these analog machines still have this crunchy sound and sauce to it. And I always compare it to, like, I tell a bodybuilder, you got 100 pounds here, you got 100 pounds there. That's an old classic Arnold Schwarzenegger rustic. It's 100 pounds. Over here you have this nice rubber matted Jack LaLanne. it's still 100 pounds. This may look new, buttery, sexy, and fly, but they do the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of these vintage analog machines, you can't emulate analog. You try to.
Right.
Digital is an emulation of analog through a system of binary codes of zeros and ones. 01 is A, 010 means B, and that's how digital had recreated analog. But they did it because analog was very expensive.
Right.
You know, and in all aspects. You know, whether you're a DJ and you went from carrying records to Serato.
Right.
If you're a producer and you were making beats by sampling records on SP1200s to now being on Fruity Loops where you download everything.
Right.
You know, so every aspect of hip hop and culture and the world, I think, has evolved into that analog, digital thing. So going back, I was the first kid.
Right. I mean, just look at the fact that we're recording this on a little device, and this would not have been
10 years ago.
No, this would have been a whole room.
Big reels to reel, right?
Yeah.
We need like a lot of money to be in here, bro.
Yeah.
Thank God we can be in here, just me and you.
Yeah.
You know, chopping it up and reaching millions of people in this digital world. You know, to go back though, after buying that SP12, I was greatly influenced to do more in my neighborhood.
Okay.
Again, made in New York, right? Made in Queens, and I started to open my studio very cheap to neighborhood talent. And as the irony of life would be, one of the first groups that started coming to my studio was a Latin hip hop group called Tres Coronas. Translation, 3 crowns. Tres Coronas, long story short, became the first ever Latin hip hop group to get signed to a major, which was in this country, which was Machete Music. It was owned by Gustavo Lopez and Mickey Hernandez. Our label mates were Tego Calderon, Daddy Yankee, Ivy Queen, Wisin Yandel, all of the iconic first who's of what we call reggaeton. The label was called Machete. It was subsidized by Universal, and it was a big deal, you know. And then, you know, for a couple of kids from Queens that were rapping 12 years ago, when it wasn't cool to do Latin rap, and people are looking at me like, "Yo, Serge, bro, you fucking crazy. Latin rap? Oof, that's tacky, dude. Have some class. That's not. Come on, dude." And I'm Latino, but like most of us Latinos, Europeans, was born here. So I grew up with the culture. Grew up listening to my mom's music, but you know, I grew up with hip hop.
Right.
Kid from Queens. But I saw something. So, you know, going back, you know, like I was saying, after I bought the SP1200, I moved on, and at that time I was the first guy doing Latin hip hop. One of the first groups again was Tres Coronas. These guys were out of Queens, Corona. It was 3 guys, 2 Colombians and a Dominican guy. And we slowly started to record music, and some people would tell us, "This is corny, this is not going anywhere," you know. Later on that year, to be valid, they didn't get signed by the biggest label, again, Don Omar, Wisin Yandel, you know, all the original artists were on Machete Music. There was even a song that Daddy Yankee had called Machete, hey.
Yeah.
Very big song.
Yeah.
This is the gasolina time. This is new. This is still people looking at this whole Latin revolution as questionable, right?
Yeah.
Corporate companies questionably investing in sponsorships. But
I remember seeing Don Omar up the block at Play.
Look at that.
Doing a concert, and that shit was packed. The line was outside, down the block. And this was like Dile Dale time.
Right.
Yeah.
So at that time, it hit, you know, and all of a sudden reggaeton had been now accepted.
Right.
Corporate companies were now investing, and in our South American countries, they were no longer looking at us as like, oh my God, these hooligans. Happens in South America and Central America, in our parents' and our grandparents' generation. Although our countries are very impoverished, there's a very big social class thing. So if you were a rapper or you listened to rap music, they looked at you as less. This is from, you know, poor people chastising poor people. Like, just because I like the culture and I dress a certain way, they looked at you as ghetto, right? So reggaeton, really, what it did was not only open Latin urban music to the entire world, it also made it acceptable culturally within Colombia, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Chile, Peru, Mexico, Spain, and Europe. To digest urban music, and for it not just to be cool, but not to be associated with low-class hooligans.
Right.
And that's a big deal.
Right.
Because our countries are very immersed in that. And what's your last name? What family do you come from? From where? And you know, New York is like, yo, I'm from 85th. Nigga, like, you don't care what your last name is.
Right.
Like, you know, David Jackson, I hustle for my last name. Over there, your last name is very important.
Right.
And I very quickly realized that what I knew then, I said hip hop in Latin America is going to be the biggest thing. Why? Because when hip hop was born in this country, it was born out of a necessity. It was a struggle. Fight the power. It was a message. It was a culture. Yeah, and it evolved into what it's become today, and we could be here forever on that.
Yeah.
But in Latin America, it's here.
Right.
I'm poor, I'm struggling,
Yeah.
I'm third world country, so that was going to happen. It's ironic that the first thing that we saw in Latin urban music was the bling bling side. The hats and the guy and the girls dancing to, and that just has to do if you study the dembow, right? Dembow, which was, the dembow, which is reggaeton, that came from Panama. And what happened was Daddy Yankee, Don Omar, Daddy Yankee used to call himself Winchester. He was a rapper. Table was a rapper. All these guys in Puerto Rico were rappers. Here's something that a lot of people don't know. I was an engineer, I was an intern at that time. Reggaeton was born in Puerto Rico from a culture that they borrowed from Panama, from El General, from the dembow. These guys were all rapping hard, rapping to like Nas beats and Mobb Deep beats, because that's what we were doing here.
Right.
An emulation.
Right.
It wasn't working. And all of a sudden they put a dembow, and Tego Calderon had the first record that just boom, 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 and then reggaeton blew up because the rhythm that they chose. They stopped rapping to these hardcore beats. They started rapping to the dembow, doom, boom, boom, boom.
Right.
Like in Jamaica, they have rhythms.
Yeah.
And you'll hear like the same rhythm and like 50 different songs to
Yeah,
the same rhythm.
Yeah.
Dembow was the same little dembow. Yeah,
Right.
the last 10 years they've added pianos and salsa and fucking hip hop, but it's still the boom, 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 boom,
Right.
boom.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that dembow, suddenly women were like
I remember.
engulfed.
I was in my early 20s at that point, and
Awesome.
in the club 6 nights a week, and it was a different energy.
Right, and once the girls shake to it,
It's
we shake to it, we
different
buy drinks to
energy.
it,
Yeah.
money's being made to it, babies
Right.
are being made to it.
Correct.
Like the whole thing changes, and like the promoters would tell me, Serge, if people aren't going to dance and drink to this shit, I want to play it. And
Right.
that stayed in me, and I said, whoa, I get the business of it. And then, lo and behold, reggaeton was born, and I had this Latin rap group, and all of a sudden we got signed to Daddy Yankee and Don Omar. It's 2005. The phone calls start coming in. YouTube is still, it was what it was. It was in its sophomore year. Let's say now it's a senior. It was still in a sophomore stage. Vimeo, Dailymotion, some of these, but people were already using them as windows to the world. And all of a sudden, the group started doing better and better and better, and then reggaeton took over the country. It was one year, 06, where, if you guys don't remember, La Mega changed their format from salsa, merengue, bachata, and typico to just reggaeton. Now, someone might say, well, that's cool. Well, how does that change everything? That means that all of those other genres of music suddenly stop making publishing revenues. Remember, every time your song plays on the radio, you generate publishing. So what do you do when a station nationwide changes its format to one genre that's being dominated by 5 artists? Those 5 artists, the Daddies, the Don, the this, the that, the Weezy, they got real rich for like a year. Because they were only ones on the radio.
Yeah.
So who got shafted and fucked? The salsa, the merengue, the
But
bachata.
it also crossed over.
It crossed over.
Because you would hear it on Hot 97 as well.
Absolutely.
And the difference is at least the difference you'll find like with reggae is it's a whole other language. Like even though reggae is in a patois, you can sometimes understand it.
You get into that, and people like that voice, but reggaeton was still something new. And then going back to what I was saying, in the beginning was Mafia. So Elias, shout out to White Lion, they had the first label, White Lion out of Puerto Rico. And I think the first real vision, to take a step back before it blew up, because I was an intern cleaning out ashtrays in a Dojo studio, shout out to Rich, was that they had an album called Boricua Guerreros. And you guys can look this up. Boricua Guerreros was the first mixtape where these guys here in America went to Puerto Rico and they were like, yo, there's these guys in Puerto Rico, man, they're rapping, they're dope, there's all these artists, and they still have a platform. And they said, all right, let's do an album. Let's go ahead and get Nas to do a song with this Rochester. Let me get Fat Joe with this Omar guy. And there was this mixtape created of all these cross artists. And it was the first time. Album didn't do shit, the numbers weren't there, people didn't believe. But if you look up Boricua Guerreros, that album, it was the first mixtape where White Lion took these popular American artists of that time. I forgot what else was on it, Nas, Jewels. They took one and one, paired it up. And it was the first project to just kind of cross the frontier and come in through Florida and then just kind of got it over the US. And then Latinos supported it, but because it wasn't popular, they were like, all right, like I know who Nas is. Who's this guy? You know,
Right.
But it was that first taste, and then fast forward, everything else happened where you know the radio went 24 hours, and then after a year when reggaeton went, the stations went back to salsa, merengue, bachata, the reggaeton then internationalized itself. That's when reggaeton became huge again in DR, in Colombia, in Europe. Suddenly you had Japanese kids dancing reggaeton. You had, you know, all this craziness happening, and it started to turn. And then meanwhile, I was there at the foot of it because I still believed in hip hop, and you know, I liked the bling bling, but I was younger. I was hardcore hip hop, hardcore Nas and Boot Camp Click and everything that we grew up with, and I was trying to do that in Spanish. And lo and behold, Tres Coronas broke those barriers for us. They were the first Latin hip hop group in 2007 to be nominated for a Latin Grammy.
Wow.
So here I am, we sold less than 10,000 albums. I get a call, Sergio, are you the manager? And yeah, we were from the Latin Grammy Commission. I hung up on the guy. I'm like, Chris, is this you? Nigga, stop playing. I hung up the phone. I hung up the phone on the Latin Grammy committee because I thought it was one of my boys pulling my chain, because I'm like, a Grammy? Nigga, I can't even sell a record. But this was when the Latin Grammys were now opening those categories.
Right.
And they were trying to bring in more urban. They were trying to make it popular. They were trying to grow their younger demographic to watch it, to interact, to be a part of it, to dream in it. Call me right back. And like, Sergio, I'm sorry, did you hang up on me? And I was like, you know, and the guy gave me the whole spiel. I hung up the phone. I swallowed my gum. You know, I just couldn't believe the fact that what we were doing, you know, had made an impact. And then following that week for the Grammy call, YouTube blew up. I started getting calls from Spain, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Chile. How much to book them, how much to bring them here, and how much to bring them there. And, you know, at that time, to get $5,000 or $8,000 for relatively an unknown group, and it's 3 guys plus incidentals and travel fees and everything else.
Right.
And, you know, I suddenly became a road manager, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and got bamboozled a bunch of times, and got stuck in airports, and had, you know, a bunch of adventures along the road, and I learned. But in those years, again, we were the first ever Latin hip hop group to get officially Grammy nominated. I don't know 10 years later now that the Bad Bunnies and all these guys, those guys are winning Grammys, you know, in an accepted market and becoming the Jay-Z's of their genre. And it's awesome because we predicted it then. I'm not gonna say me, it was a group of us. We predicted it then, we saw it then, we jumped on it then, we ate shit then because people looked at us like idiots. You do it now, I'm like, oh, okay, we got a Latin artist in here.
So why do you think there was that lull from that period to like the last couple of years? Because there, in that period of time, there wasn't a huge, at least here in America, and internationally it's probably a little bit different, but there wasn't a huge influence of, and the Bad Bunnies of this world, some people would say, are more like a Latin trap, right? Which is a derivative of some sorts. What do you think happened that stopped that for a period of years?
Why it took 10 years, why, you know, well, Machete closed as a reggaeton label, and I think just what happened was reggaeton blew up, you know, and then it exploded and then it imploded.
Right.
It got really big, took over the radio waves, and then suddenly we went back to salsa, merengue, bachata, and then it went to Europe. And these guys started making money touring overseas because now they were like these huge reggaeton stars in the US.
Right.
So now when Tego goes to Puerto Rico, I was like, oh my God, Tego's here. I gotta go see him. You know, so that whole thing about me being bigger in LA and an LA kid coming to New York, the same thing happened.
Yeah.
So the initial bunch of reggaeton superstars now took their show on the road. Mm-hmm. They built their brand here, radio loved them, then we exploded and imploded. Rap or trap, I'm gonna call it rap because we were doing rap then, you know. It was called Latin hip hop then. Mm-hmm. You know, it wasn't called trap. Because it was hip hop then, we were emulating what was happening then. Why Latin hip hop then died was because we were behind reggaeton. We were slowly, like literally behind them. And when reggaeton took a step back, radio, publicists, booking agents, they stopped giving Don Omar 100, 200, because I was hearing it all. I was touring, and I would hear promoters say, damn, bro, I had 300,000, but Don Omar wanted 100. I can't hire these salsa bands. So it wasn't just in the radio that these other genres were being pushed out. Reggaeton pushed out everybody when it came to the promoters, the venues, the concerts. And it was a struggle for years for them to get back. But when they got back, bachata had a huge time. The Aventuras of the world, the Prince Royces, all these other artists emerged. And then that became a huge genre. And salsa found a new voice, and cumbia, and all these other, it again regained its popularity. And just what happened then was, rap was almost gonna blow up then, 10 years ago. We were about to emerge to be, to be accepted like reggaeton was. But reggaeton was still in its infancy stage. It still wasn't what it is now. So we had to kind of go back behind and just go back to living on the internet or in the underground world. And then there was a lot of rap. See, by this time in 2005, they were already in Spain, many advanced groups. They were already retired, like Jay-Z's, like guys that were getting paid big euros, like Violadores de Verso and Tote Kings, and guys that were huge in the late 90s. You were like, never heard of them. They're in Europe.
Yeah.
You know, but to better answer your question, it was just that reggaeton took a big step back in all formats: radio, shows, venues, TV. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, rap was behind it. Rap took 2 steps back. And it took the right ambassador. I'm gonna say it that way. It took a Bad Bunny that was being ushered in by an archangel who is widely known as one of the original megastars of reggaeton, to say, this is that next guy. Also, what had to happen was the rhythms had to change. Boom bap in Spanish wasn't widely accepted in these Latin American cultures because it was too much the neck.
Right, not the hips.
It was not. When the trap came, it's like these guys, and remember, Latins like to dance.
Right.
So all of a sudden, there were cool lyrics with cool tones emulating, but the beats were now trap. I'll even say it, as a Latino, I hate when some Latinos, I've said it, I'll say it again. By definition, it's not even Latin trap. It's really just Latin hip hop. Because hip hop is the culture.
Right.
Trap just came as a subsidiary of hip hop. And trap was trap music, and trap music was niggas that was trapping. They were selling drugs all night. They were staying up like zombies. So they would listen to these kind of beats to kind of just stay on the block, and it was like this, just kind of like a coffee for the hood. But it was rhythms and feelings that came from niggas selling drugs all night and trapping on the block, and then living that world of not getting caught and selling the drugs and bagging up the work and getting robbed and robbing the next drug dealer, and this is my block, and that world. Right. That's where that music came from the trap. And the word trap, if you don't know what it means, is it's not glorified. We're not happy to be stuck selling drugs on the corner. We are trapped on the corner selling drugs. And that's where it came from. It was a trap. Right. It was alluring, and then it would lure you in and you were trapped. Like Uber. It's a trap. They lure you in, and then you gotta work 1,000 hours a week. Nah, Matt, my bad. Shout out to Uber. But I just mean that there's certain things that are alluring and appealing, and they suck you in. So these kids that are rapping now, no disrespect to Bad Bunny, these are good kids, from mommies and daddies, good kids, and they know the lyrics, they say the beats, but they haven't been trapping. They're not up till 9 in the morning. They don't have bags in their eyes like me. They're not trapping. You're good kids. Stay good kids.
We were just
stay out the trap, man. You
don't want to do that. About the same thing in the car on the way here, talking about who's the artist?
Young Thug.
Young Thug, talking about he's carrying 100 pounds of weed in the car. I'm like, first of all, nobody's carrying 100 pounds of weed in the car. And we had a whole conversation about that. But before we talk, let's segue back. So long, and I could hear it in your voice, the passion for music.
Yeah, no, that was it. Man.
How do you transition away from that to doing something else? Like, and how did you end up where you are here now?
So that was so now, Reggaeton Rise, we had the Grammys in 2007, we did all the big shows, Despierta America, Bordo de la Flaca. We didn't win the Grammy, Calle 13, who won 6 Grammys that year, did. We became very good friends with Residente, and then we continued, and then, Machete dissolved as a label. Mm-hmm. The owners went to do Mexican text music because they saw more money in it, so there was something there. And then reggaeton had now gone to South America. It became huge in Colombia, in my country, something that I predicted. So as the culture moved from Puerto Rico to Dominican Republic, that had some time in the spotlight with artists, and then Colombia, the group that I had at that point split up. It was three artists. One of the guys went to do reggaeton, which was not our thing, which was Ray Chester. He was signed to Chosen Few. And then my other 2 guys kind of split. One of them left to Colombia. One of them, Roca, was already a huge star in France. He was the first French rapper. So he already had a tenure And he decided to go back to France. Kind of like Nas disappearing and coming back 10 years later. We're like, oh my God, we've been sitting here since Illmatic waiting for you.
Yeah.
That happened. So he went back and found his culture. Shout out to Roga, dropping an album with Universal France. Anytime soon again, just a superstar. And then Boncho went to Colombia and started doing like Pitbull dance comedy. And then Colombia was already advancing into that. And I needed to find myself. Now I go back to the studio. I'm managing artists again. Then Wu-Tang, the Wu-Tang deal came. At that time, now people were like, Serge, you're like the Spanish Diddy. You took these guys from the hood and you got Grammy nominated in a year, and you got them at 300 million views. Like, how did you do it? I don't know how to do it. To be honest. Right place, right time. I picked up the phone. I always had a savviness for business. I did do this. When the calls came in, I processed them. I took advantage of every tour. I took advantage of the internet in its prime stages. But I didn't have the sauce. It was just, we're talkers, we're snoozers, we're business guys, we're hungry, And in that point, Wu-Tang came to me. Rock Nation came to me. Everybody was coming to me saying, we're starting a Latin label. Because at that point, everybody, Jay-Z signed Azteca, that flopped. MMG signed a bunch of bearded guys in Florida, that flopped. Bad Boy Latino, that flopped. Wu-Tang Latino, a guy named Ray Rockacosta approached me, and I had an artist named Gab Gotcha, shout out to Gab Gotcha, and we worked out a deal, and lo and behold, now I had my second label deal. So now I have Machete, Tres Coronas, and now I had Gab Gotcha with Wu Latino. And I got the opportunity to start hanging out at the Wu Mansion, and to meet RZA, meet all these guys. It was on my bucket list. So I got a chance to sit and play chess and get my ass kicked by the RZA many nights. The man can really play chess. And those guys are really well off still. It was great to see that these artists were not doing bad financially. They still had the mansion, the Wu-Tang Mansion. It's right off the exit of Great Adventure. If anybody has been there, it's amazing. You walk in, you see all the Wu-Tang memorabilia and the plaques, and they have a beautiful studio. Shout out to my man Free, who still runs the studio, who we actually spoke the other day. And I started going there with Gab, and next thing you know, they were like, oh, you engineer too? You're an engineer? Can you mix this guy? And can you? So now I'm engineering ODB's son, Boy Jones. I was engineering a bunch of different Ninth Prince, shout out to Ninth, a bunch of artists that were there. And I'm managing one artist, but Wu's using me to do a bunch of little things. To the degree even like my first video with a DSLR camera, I had just bought a 5D. And RZA walked in one day, and every time RZA would bet there, he was like, on their pins and needles. He was like, yo, man, did somebody come help me shoot this thing? And like, my man looked at me like, yo, tell him you know how to use the camera. Like, come on. And here we are walking around the RZA's mansion with my DSLR, shooting scenes in his house, in his bathroom, in his chessboard. And to me, it was like bucket list shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, wow. And I remember that day I took a super cool picture with RZA, and it was a moment in time for me. And I would hang out a lot. The deal went up, the deal went sour, and not to blame Wu-Tang or anybody else to the dissolution of my thing with Gab, but it just got to the point when I did too much and they just gave us the W, and I was investing my time and I had done a lot, and suddenly they put the artist in a hard position. And I'll always remember this. They were like, yo, you can't rep Serge's company anymore. You gotta rep Wu-Tang. But this is after I had spent time and money and did videos and took the artist to Colombia. And he was already at the door. Like, they felt something big was about to happen. So they swooped in and said, well, you can't do that anymore. You gotta wear the W now. And I just said, bro, sometimes in life, to save a friendship, you have to terminate a business. And sometimes in life, to save a business, you have to terminate a friendship. I said, Gab, I love you, bro. You're my boy. You'll always be my boy. Good luck with Wu-Tang. And I walked away. And 3 months later, I picked up a camera, and it changed my life. And it hurt a lot of those guys to see me 6 months later shooting videos for French Montana, and Mano and Jinx and Lotto, becoming the director of the Smack URL, building the biggest battle rap league. So I thank them for putting me in that position, because I walked away. The next day I bought a camera, because I saw Daniel Hastings, shout out Daniel, who was just here, one of the biggest photographers in the world. So he shot every album cover that we fell in love with. Okay. Analog, 36 Chambers, the first Big Pun cover with the thing, the Nas cover, the Illmatics, the Jodeci's, the Little Kims. He did analog photography. I'm honored that now that I have a shop, he shoots here. Actually, last week we just shot Jadakiss, the Lox album cover analog for the label.
Wow.
So a new album coming, you heard it here. So I saw him shoot a video. He was Don Omar, and there was a bunch of those cameras, DSLRs. And I'm like, bro, sir, don't worry. You don't get it. This is what people are shooting. It's a DSLR, it's digital, it's 1080. I'm like, when we shot this, I staba our video. I saw the label get there and give him a bunch of rhetoric about it. Like, we paid $30, $50. Like, what are you doing? And he was so cool. He was like, well, guys, don't worry. This is it. And I saw this big video, and I was just so immersed in it that the next day I went out and I bought a digital camera. A week later, my boy Will Millions, one of my mentors, shout out TNY Films, he said, yo, I got this guy named Smack, and we're doing a commercial. I had never seen a battle rap. I'm not even gonna lie. Didn't know dick from diddle. And I went, I started taking little pictures with the camera, taught myself, and showed them to Smack. And I was like, yo, man, yo, Serge, I got this event Friday. You should come. I need some shooters. So out of respect, I tell my mentor who brought me to this job, it's like him meeting me and me and him doing business, and he doesn't clear it through me.
Yeah.
There's an order of operations, I think, right? Respect.
Yeah.
I said, bro, Will, the Smack guy called me. He wants me to go this thing. And he was like, man, I don't want to do no battle rap stuff, man. I ain't doing none of that shit. I said, bro, would you mind if I go do it? He said, go ahead. Long story short, I went once, then twice, 3, 4. By the 5th battle now, we're at Webster Hall. The biggest battle. Puffy's gonna be here. There's 1,000 people. The line's wrapping around Webster Hall. And it's chaos. 20 different cameras on stage, 20 different dudes. And I saw an opportunity, and I'm an opportunist. I said, Smack, do me a favor. Walk up to everybody on stage. Tell them that this little light-skinned nigga's in charge, and I'll fix everything that's going on. Serge, what do you mean? Serge. I said, Smack, you got 1,000 people outside. You got no security. You got Puffy on his way. Your branding stuff is not up. All these cameras are set to different apertures. Yeah. So everything is set to a different thing.
Yeah, we can pause it for a second.
Pause. Pardon me.
I don't know.
Yeah. So that was a turning point. So I walked up to the stage. I tell Smack, tell him I'm in charge. There's a bunch of shit. He doubted it. And finally, he walked up. Yo, excuse me. Yo, this is my man Serge. You know, he's in charge. I was like, great, Smack, thank you guys. All right, security, I need 6 barricades in a T formation here, and going down the line. I need everybody to bring me their cameras. I need everybody to bring me their batteries. I need you, and you. You're gonna be my runners. You, and you. I need the logos and the plaques on the stage for Bad Boy here, Ciroc here. And everybody just, yo, we gotta go right now, guys. And then Smack looked at me, put his hand on me, and he walked away. Lo and behold, that particular battle, if you guys are into battle rap, was the day that Ness battled DNA, Charlie Clips. That was the day that Puff threw $10,000 on the stage. You know, DNA freestyled and used everybody in there to kill Ness on stage, and it became one of the most iconic battles and turning points for battle rap. And it was amazing. You know, I assigned all the things. I checked all the cameras. I made sure all the settings were the same. I created some runners to run batteries. I didn't do anything genius. All I did was become organized and to be conscientious and to be vocal, like I always have. That night, Beasley, Smack, Chico Bean, they all came up to me. They're like, Serge, let's talk. We sat down in the room. He goes, yo, cut the fat. We want you to be the executive director of the entire league. We want you to be the director of the league, and for you to handle everything media. And no problem. And I accepted it. And then the next 2 years, we created some of the most iconic battles. To this day, the Lux vs. Calico, we gonna get that work. Where he came out dressed in a suit with a coffin and women throwing petals, the theatrics of where we took these battles. And that day, that battle, Lux became, again, everybody wanted to sign him. There was this tension on the culture. By then, I knew what I was doing. Every battle was getting 2-3 million views. Sponsors are putting great money behind it. I then realized it was like wrestling. Where behind closed doors, it was like, yo, October 25th, I'm gonna bite your ears off and kill your kids, And then the camera shut off, hey, Mike, how's your wife doing?
Wonderful.
How are the kids? Great, fantastic. And I'm like, this motherfucker, you fucking Vince McMahon, motherfucker. You're Vince McMahon, and these are your wrestlers. I just wanna be UPN 9, let's go. And we laughed about it, and we created all these concepts, and man, battle rap grew, and it was always gonna be bigger than me, bigger than Smack. But I was happy to be there at the time on Smack, and it became, to this day, DNA, Charlie, DNA is one of my closest friends, and he was just here with his wife. They did a sip and paint. I at one point worked at Wild 'N Out. I was the photographer on set. Coincidentally, then Conceited, Charlie Clips, and all these guys ended up there, and there was already a synergy between us. So it was just a great time for battle rap to grow, and I was always an advocate of the culture. And man, I would go to different cities and different areas, and I'd go to the scariest hoods, and I'd be like, always trying to cop a little bud in these hoods. And I'd be like in the hoods, and be like, yo man, where I know you from? And I'm like, nah bro, you don't know me, I'm not from out here. Nah man, I see you, dog. And I'm like, do you watch battle rap? Word! Yo, my man, yo, chill. They was gonna rob you. Nah, this is my man from battle rap. And 10 minutes later, they go from wanting to rob me to every kid on the block spitting rhymes in my ears. Like I was smacked, like I was gonna get them into proving grounds.
Yeah.
And it showed me, I'm like, wow, there's this power in this culture. And I'm still young in my career as a producer, and I still didn't know shit. I just knew how to point and shoot. I didn't know what I know now. And then from Smack, we built the show all the way till BET took it. And at that point, Smack continued. I took a step away, but before that happened, he introduced me to French Montana. And French Montana at that time was still starting. He was living in Weehawken, and he was already signed to Diddy, had a couple of records. Zach was still in jail. Chinks was obviously, alive and around. And man, it was a great time. I started doing little videos for them, started editing all their shows, all their tours, coming around them. In no which way was I doing merchandise, but I was just the camera guy. I was always around. They even offered me a job to go on the road, but I was already 31, 32. So it was not the job for a grown man to be on the road for like the X amount of dollars, which would have been a great opportunity for me 5 years earlier. And although I didn't have kids and a family, I just had a route to New York, and French and being with the Coke Boys at that time was great because they were growing. And all the way until French left to LA, I was around, and they would call me, and I had a different relationship with Chinks. And when Zach, his brother, came home, Coke president, I became friends with him, and just got a chance to be around them. And they would call me frequently enough where I was around. I was around the events, around the concerts. And then obviously French left to LA, and he became the mega mogul, and now he had the biggest directors in the world in LA. Also at that time, I stayed in New York, and I was working with Chinks. I met Mano, I met Vado, I met Uncle Murder, I met all these rappers, and because I was working with French, obviously now these guys wanted to work with me, and I was still figuring out the video thing, but I very quickly learned how to hustle. There was a point where I would even tell Gabi, which was French's manager, yo, I got a sponsor, and he's putting $5,000 to do this video, and I heard this record, send me the record. And then they'd get the record, and then I'd call sponsors and say, hey, French just gave me this record, I need 5,000. So like, I would tell the chicken I had the egg, and I'd tell the egg I had the chicken.
Right.
And I was in the middle still fronting.
Mm-hmm.
But I had this thing.
Where do you trace that to? Because I hear that same hustle multiple times from a lot of people.
We're New Yorkers.
Right.
New Yorkers, we're slash. We're slash producer, slash director, slash this, slash that. In LA, it's frowned upon. In LA, if you go and you say I'm a director, slash editor, slash colorist, slash producer, they're like, okay, interesting. Because LA Hollywood scene is Hollywood, and they look at people and they frown upon people that try to do too much. They believe that a master of all trades is a jack of all trades is a master of nothing.
Right.
I'm a strong believer that New Yorkers have something. There's something in our DNA that forces us to wear multiple hats. And I'm a strong believer that along that path, the same way I did it. I started with music and making beats and engineering and managing and signing and the Grammys and picking up a camera starting from scratch, creating the culture of battle rap, meetings, French. Every step of the way, I learned, and I re-evolved. I'll leave here right now and go to my studio and mix. I still mix. So there's certain things that I think that New Yorkers have, going back to the made in New York. We're forged in steel, and I meet a lot of guys like us that have an interesting background story.
Right.
And parallel to all this, I did sales. I worked for the #1 Dominican rich guy in the country, and I worked for IAT. We were the creators of Boss phone cards. So all this time, I had a day job, and I became a corporate executive. I was making $170,000 a year, legitimately. Niggas thought I sold drugs. I'm like, what do you hustle? And I'm like, phone cards. Because I did all this hip hop shit on the side.
Yeah.
But I wasn't making any money from hip hop.
Right,
It was
right.
just me putting money into it, but you have to
love.
make money from somewhere.
Right.
I got lucky, bro. I landed in a hustle. I started in customer service. I had the gift for gab. Next thing you know, I'm in sales. And next thing you know, I'm generating $5 million a month in sales of phone cards. People wouldn't believe me. I wouldn't believe me. And very soon I was traveling the country doing that, you know? Give me a second.
Yeah. What happened, battery died?
Really are running out of space. So I record in high quality for this. I think we would go from one to that, so I didn't. We're currently at we're currently at like 38.
Yeah.
Who's that track talk?
No, that's cool.
Ay, ay, ay. The new cleaning lady just got a car towed. I'm like,
Oh shit, I parked right here.
where? In front? Not in Toys R Us.
No, on the side of the building
Yeah,
right
yeah,
here.
because if you go into Toys R Us, yeah, the side of the building, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. But going back, what was I saying?
Talking about Cook Boys. And
Oh yeah. So by that time, you know, so from picking up a camera to in a very short time meeting Smack to helping, you know, to running the URL league to then
You were
meeting
talking
friends.
about the boss phone call.
Oh yeah, so that became my bread and butter. You know, I think we all have something, and you know, a lot of my guys were stockbrokers with this, with that. My day hustle was I was in sales, and at one point I was doing over $5-6 million a month in sales, and I was traveling the country meeting, you know, Arabs, Jews, Koreans. So I worked for a Jewish company called IET, Orthodox, and all the distributors were Arab. If you know your history, the Jews and the Arabs, they don't get along. And here in America, they
Unless it comes to business.
Here in America, they do a lot of business,
Right.
right? So in the telecom world, I won't bore you guys with telecom. In the telecom world, all the carriers are termination centers. They buy and sell minutes, pipelines. All the carriers, a lot of the carriers are Jewish owned, and a lot of the distributors, store owners, bodegas, a lot of them were Arab owned, especially in the West. And suddenly Latinos became the segue between buying and selling minutes to put them on a phone card to then sell it in an Arabic store who would then sell it to Latinos to call Mexico, Guatemala, and El Salvador. So communications went from calling centers, the little calling places where you would go and sit in the phone, to calling cards. In the beginning they were $50, $20. And then now it's evolved into voice over IP, the WhatsApp. And so what happened at the end of my calling card career was the WhatsApps and voice over IP and Vonage and all these other things. Phone cards are still $100 million industry, but then they were a $900 million industry, and IDT we controlled 50-60%. So I made a lot of money in the telecom business, and I bought property and I bought a studio, and you know, I made sure that I would be able to go back to doing what I love, you know. And I totally left telecom along my story when the Grammys. Literally, when I got Grammy nominated that week, I felt like, yo, I'm the Latin Puffy. Yeah, I'm making $160, but I'm gonna be bigger than this. And I literally walked away from telecom, and I kept doing some routes for T-Mobile. I did Sims, and I opened 300-400 stores in New York. I always had that gift.
Right.
And after leaving corporate, I was like, I want to make a little money. Let me have a route. If you know about routes.
Yeah.
And in 2 months, I had a route of 300 stores. T-Mobile was like, yo, this guy's awesome. But it was still taking time away, and eventually, you know, the culture and it just absorbed me. And eventually, I was able to quit. And upon leaving the battle rap scene, because again, Smack sold to BET, to Freestyle Fridays with Lil Bow Wow, I started chasing French and Coke Boys and then, you know, Murder, Lotto, and all these artists that I met. And I started doing videos, even just independent, just artists that were coming, 2,000 to 5,000, 2-3 videos a month. I mean, shit, I was doing okay.
Yeah.
And
You're doing
then
good.
I was doing good because I loved what I did, and I had money saved, and I had property, and I had my recording studio at night. So I was still mixing and mastering and recording, and still swinging for the bleachers, looking for that next big artist. 2 label deals down, maybe the third one will really be bigger. And then now, you know, finding my own way, and then all of a sudden, 2 years ago, in doing videos, JC NY was my good friend. He had a studio. He was also a DJ back in the day. I started using his space to shoot videos. I brought Uncle Murder there. I brought Capone Noriega there. I brought Compton Menace. Shout out Compton. So many artists over there. I brought fucking Shabba Ranks there. I brought New York One there. I brought Eric Benet. I mean, just amazing artists of all spectrums. And then every time that I'd bring them, I would convert them. When I say convert them, like, hey, we're doing a video. Yo, you know my man Prince does websites and does t-shirts here. And an invoice would get generated, and my guy would be like, yo, I'm putting a little sign.
Yeah.
And a little sign, and a little sign, and a little sign. And then all of a sudden, the guy that rents the studio to shoot videos is doing X percentage of the sales of the entire company.
Right.
We need to bring this guy in. Mm-hmm. And I became more and more comfortable with the apparel side in it, and I saw something sexy in it. I think that everything that I've done passionately enough, I've had to connect the dot. You know, the client that I had yesterday, can I upsell them? Can I convert them into this? You know, somewhere along the way, I don't know why, I got into a Quiznos. Big mistake, biggest mistake in my life. Because there was no conversion. Along the way, there was nothing. I was never in the food business. You know, everything else connected, but this didn't. Mm-hmm. You know, so, all of a sudden, I started doing business with Jay. It was still called NY Design. And then Paola, my other partner, still had her company called Whatever Inc., which was in Steinway doing apparel. And as that year ended, we had a vision and we came up with a name called Colorworks. And colors because colors are infused with everything. And works because I saw WeWorks. And WeWorks is a commune workspace community. Mm-hmm. Colorworks is a commune workspace community for the creative, hence the C. Color because everything is composed of colors of the spectrum. Design is composed of colors. We're a colorful group. We all come from colorful backgrounds. So it just lends itself, you know. And we established Colorworks in May of 2016. And in 1 year, we outlived the space. And we now had a vision to create a bigger platform. And just to be exact, to go from producing maybe 500 pieces a day to having the capacity to produce 5,000 pieces a day, making me a different player in the game. And we brought on a new partner, which was Sammy Cueva, wealthy investor who owns a lot of the blend restaurants here in New York. And he helped us find this location right across the street.
Right.
Awesome.
Easy move.
A great rate in still the Long Island City Arts budding district. And we moved, man. We made the move over here. We bought the new machines. We took a big risk, a big plunge, and we're still swimming. It's now been a year here in our new location in September, and here now close to 8,000 square feet, having all these amenities, new machines, more staff. We got into the digital thing. We got into the social media thing, but never forgetting that. Like I said, I leave here and I go do music. I still run my studio. I still have Square Deal.
So is the dream to finally get the Grammy?
The dream is still the Grammy, but I think the Grammy is swinging for a home run, and I think that a lot of us suffer behind our dream. So I humbled myself. The dream is now to help emerging artists. Before it was a me thing. Like, I want to get a Grammy. I would love to get nominated. I would love to, sign a huge artist. I wish Bad Bunny was my, stuff like that.
Yeah.
To then evolving and saying, because I see so many artists suffer every day. Especially artists that hit 30, they're suffering because they only have that dream. And if they don't become the biggest, they're gonna suffer. And that's a very dismal life. Mm-hmm. You have to be happy at every facet. And I get it, New Yorkers, life is hard. We're all moving, we're all struggling, but happiness is the biggest thing to me now. And I learned that happiness comes from suffering. This is Confucius. And Confucius will tell us that happiness comes from suffering. So when you extinguish the suffering, from desire. Suffering comes from desire. When you extinguish the desire, you extinguish the suffering. Oh my God, I want those new Jordans. Oh my God, I gotta be the biggest artist in the country. Oh my God, I really want to. So you desire. And when you create that desire, you suffer for it. Mm. So when you extinguish your desire, you extinguish the suffering. So I stopped desiring the Grammy. Okay. I would love it, but I more desired to create a platform where other directors can grow and other apparel companies can grow, and eventually we're sort of turning into a label here. Mm-hmm. If you think about it.
Right.
An artist needs apparel. An artist needs a website. An artist needs management. He needs a studio. He needs videos. He needs digital presence. Check. I didn't have the other checks.
Right.
I had the studio.
Yeah.
I was the director, but I didn't have the digital, the website, the apparel, the merchandise. And those are the things now that make me relevant. Because every kid has a camera.
Right.
Everybody calls themselves a director. Every kid with a $500 setup says he has a recording studio.
Right.
Right? Because everything went from analog to digital. And in the digital world, you don't need talent. You just need a few bucks.
Right.
Right? So, because everything had gone so digital, I was like, man, I don't stand out anymore. Just another guy. Now I'm an older guy.
Right.
In my 30s with a camera and a school bag, chasing these rappers. And I saw the upsell conversion when I started going to JC, where guys would be like, oh shit, what you print here? I saw it in their eyes.
Yeah.
Got it.
So the opportunity.
That's where I gotta be. I can still do all this, but I need to add this to my repertoire.
Right.
Because not everybody has a facility with $250,000, $500,000 worth of equipment in it,
Right.
and a team that knows how to do it. Because I can put you in front of a screen print machine.
Right.
You don't let me sit.
Be like,
Right. So having the team and having the equipment and now having this amazing space became that. And I was like, all of a sudden I was like, you know, again, infused with that passion, but now for apparel. You know, I would never have thought as, when I worked in IT and I'm selling, I'm seeing invoices for $2 million from my clients and I'm flying around the country wearing suits and ties, that I'd be sitting in a room talking about a t-shirt for a startup company. And in no which way do I feel that one is better than the other. I love what I've done every step of the way, but it's just funny that t-shirt to me is now more important than making $5 million for somebody else, because this is my company.
Right.
And it's these 24 t-shirts and I help you, you're gonna go sell them. Next week you're gonna come for 100. And when you're doing 1,000, we're at an event and we're schmoozing and we're laughing about how we built this brand.
Yeah.
That's the passion. That's what I did at Kickoff. And I have a lot of success stories. And I mean, not mine, I mean everybody else's. Of how many kids come in here with a design and they don't really know what they're doing, and I guide them and I help them save money, penny saved, penny earned, and they put it out there. And then I'll go and I'll say, hey, I got Uncle Murder coming Friday. I'm gonna put it on and take a picture and send it to you. No other apparel place is gonna give you that extra love. If you come to Colorworks, you get us. You get the sauce for free. I saw that advantage, and I saw as more and more brands came in that the same background that I've talked to you about today, being on the verge of Latin hip hop, being Grammy nominated, being a director early with the Coke Boys, I haven't said it, I was on Love and Hip Hop last season playing myself. Shout out to James R, who put me on the show. I've never really looked for the limelight. I've always enjoyed being in the background. Mm-hmm. I think we all started. When I started as a kid, I wrote, I sang, I danced, I did all that shit.
Yeah.
Because that's where it came from. Like, I couldn't teach something that wasn't in me, but I always realized I never wanted to be the man. I wanted to be the man behind the man. I wanted to be the team that created the platform for the brand, the product, the service, the good, the artist, and here I am. I'm almost there. I have this amazing company, I have an amazing team, and yesterday there was a video shoot, tomorrow there's an album release. I'm here with you guys by the grace of God today.
Yeah.
And I just added a garage door,
So what's next?
I think next for Colorworks is obviously, I see us evolving, and by the end of this year, we just signed a deal where we have ULM, which is a Latino-owned PR firm.
Yeah.
They're pretty big, and George Cano and my good friend Renzo Davia, who was doing videos for Tres Coronas 10 years ago and had a little show on UPN 9 called Latin Nation, which he sold for a nice ticket. Those guys have a commercial company. So how great is it to reconnect with guys that
You worked with 10 years.
10 years ago that I respect and revere, that are a little bit older than me, corporate, Latino owned, that now I'm subleasing to in my own place, and they're coming here with their 4 or 5 major clients, and we'll be able to synergize, we'll be able to work together, and then book off days in the studio, and I can continue to learn as a director from their commercials, and from what we do collectively. So it's awesome. So that's happening now. The garage door is coming now, so we'll be able to do bigger videos and commercials, because we can bring vehicles and motorcycles and bikes. But I think the bigger footprint is that by the end of the year, we are indirectly turning into a label. at its capacity because of everything that I just said.
Right.
And at that point, I'd love to dream. I never stop dreaming. I'm always dreaming. But when I say that, is one of my biggest mentors was Don King. And Don King once said something to me. He said, focus on the fight, not the fighter. The fighter will see the bright lights one day and he'll leave you. He said, who do you see me next to at the end of the fight? The winner. I never lose. I focus on the fight, not the fighter. Immediately that meant to me, stop managing artists.
Start a label.
Start a label. Sell the services. No, not even start a label.
Yeah.
Sell the services. What do artists need? A studio, an engineer, beats, writers, singers for the hooks, photography, videography, and then merchandise.
Right.
So my business went from betting on the horse to betting on the race, because there's always a race.
Yeah.
You never. Oh, and you're not gonna win. But you're not gonna win everyone.
No.
So instead of betting on the horse and dealing with horse problems and jail and baby mamas and pregnancy and having to fund these kids, and not every manager recoups his money. I'll take that back. Almost every manager doesn't recoup his money. For the 1% of guys who make an artist blow up, there's the 99.9% of guys that are managing, putting in money and sweat and losing their wives and their kids for some rapper who got arrested, did drugs, who did whatever and fucked up everything that you did.
Right.
Because, right?
Right.
So Don King's comment changed my life. I always say it. Focus on the fight, not on the fighter. I know it sounds fucked up, and to all the artists that are listening to this, in no which way or manner do I mean that we shouldn't support artists. It means that for some of us, our gift and our calling is to create a platform, not to hold one artist by the hand, but to create a platform where all artists can be on, and then that's where we're gonna see who's going to shine.
Right.
So by me building Colorworks in Queens, right? I'm creating a place where directors can shoot, rent lights cheaper, not gonna get penny pinch for going over the hours. Bloggers can come shoot. It's great to have Tidal and Revo and all these great guys here, but it's even greater to get these startup companies. I just had a meeting with CUNY, where these guys wanna come every Friday for the entire year with their photographers that are gonna shoot up and coming artists to create content. And the way they are laying it out, it's genius. I'm happy to be a part of it,
Right.
and I'm getting paid for it every week.
Right.
And if something greater comes out of it, I can go in and find the next 50, the next Takashi, or I can just find more clients that want to convert and they need shirts, hats, and this.
Right.
If not, I got to invoice every Friday. So, we all have passion. We all have our heart in the right place. So when I say focus on the fight, guys, if you're a DJ, if you're a producer, it means focus on your craft. Don't get so focused, because a lot of us come up in the game because our boy was a rapper, so we started making beats, and your other boy became the manager, and your other boy, and we just jumped into it. And that's beautiful. That's how this shit really happens. But what I'm saying is, if you're the guy that has the power, the knowledge, and the resources to build that platform on the team, then go build it. Then go build a studio, go to school, become an engineer. So when you come back to the block, you're the nigga that can build a studio, mix, master. You want to be a nice guy, don't charge your boys. How about that? But learn, assess, educate, empower yourself, so you can be that guy on the block, in that neighborhood, in that is the studio to go to, is the engineer to go to, is the guy with the beats. I was that guy in my neighborhood in Corona, Jackson Heights. Everybody went to Sergio's studio at one point. And then at one point, everyone did a video with Sergio. And at one point, everybody did their merchandise with Sergio. And as I've grown older, my market has grown older, but I've picked up all the new guys because I have now enough experience and enough things on my resume where you can point and say, this is what I've done, and the numbers don't lie, people lie, and social media lies, and interconnectivity, and we're so connected that it's now to a deficit. We're in a fast food moment where a lot of social media is great for marketing, but it's horrible what it does to personal relationships. It's horrible what it does to love. It's horrible what it's doing to a lot of things, and that's a whole nother blog. But I tell people, focus on the fight. If I can leave somebody with something, focus on the fight. Focus on empowering yourself, getting the resources, and putting up the studio.
putting up the art studio, buying a one press or one head and making little hats out of your basement and starting your own clothing line and helping every kid on your block start his, and, buying a microphone and starting your own podcast show and interviewing everybody on the block.
Right.
Whatever it is at whatever capacity, focus on the fight.
Yeah.
Focus on the fight. Fighters will come and go. If you got a great fighter and you believe in, don't let go. But in no which way or form should you stop focusing on the fight. Because if you want to still be doing this 10 years from now, I could have been working at Wendy's or a hospital. I run into my friends like, yo, sir, you still do music money there? And I'm like, yeah, but I do media, marketing, branding, everything that's interconnected to it, and I love it. I could have been in a hospital doing shit that I don't love.
Right.
I'm lucky that I kept evolving every step of the way and then working hard enough to find enough success in it to monetize. 'Cause that's the other thing, guys. Not everything that we do we monetize at it. Monetizing is a whole nother thing. Right? We can be successful, and I'll make an example. I love battle rappers. I love the culture, but it not always monetizes.
No.
A lot of those kids are struggling. Not all of them are going to end up on TV. Not all of them are.
Most of them are not going to end up on TV.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, monetizing and becoming popular is two different things.
Right.
If anything, the hardest thing in the world is to be famous and broke.
Right.
There's a lot of not just battle rappers.
Right.
That's how you see these true Hollywood stories.
Yeah.
Motherfuckers jumping out the window. It's because they've had so much success, so much fame, so much power, so much money, and they lost it. And it's easier sometimes to deal with that because failure keeps you hoping. Success requires power and responsibility. I give $1 million to some fucking kid on the block. Yo, he might be dead in a week. He sniffed it, fucked it, sneakered it, wasted it, did everything with that money. The other kid is still waking up 6 a.m. every day like, man, today's gonna be my day. I'm dreaming, man, I'm gonna make it today.
Yeah.
The guy next to you gave him all absolute power, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so sometimes, guys, success is harder to deal with than failure. And so, that's why you see a lot of athletes and rappers and young kids, not having that longevity because they don't know how to financially save and do things that are frugal for a long lasting. But if anything that I can leave you is, focus on the fight, not just the fighter. We're strong believers in Made in New York. Again, I did everything in Queens because I support Made in New York. Hey, look, Made in China, made this, made that. That's all great and dandy. And I'll sit here and talk to people why doing it in New York, whether it's through us or another manufacturer or another producer or another studio, is better. And how supporting our city, supporting our culture keeps everything here. You know what I'm saying? But I'm excited. I'm excited to see Colorworks continue to grow. And I think that in the next year, we're still in our first year.
That's dope. I didn't even realize that because I was here about a year ago, probably when you just moved into this facility.
A little bit of a shit show.
It was messy.
It was shabby. What do you say? Yeah.
But it's great to see it process. So last question. Yeah. You're a Queens kid. You've been here pretty much your whole life, but you've traveled the whole world. Do you see yourself dying in New York?
I do see myself dying in New York because I love upstate, and I think if I was going to die somewhere,
I love it up there.
I love upstate. I think that New York has a lot of untamed, untampered, undiluted areas, and I used to love PA and the Poconos and all this, and everybody 5 years ago, buy a house in PA, buy a house in Pocono. Now I'm like, buy a house upstate New York. So I see my retirement in the U.S., but I see the next 10 years of my life as, globally growing, in the sense that I helped build this company, and my vision is that by the end of this year, this company is built. And guys, to build a successful company means that you can walk away from it. Managing your own time is what makes us wealthy. So to me, if a year from now, I still have to be here 30, 40 hours a week, 50, 60, 80 hours a week, I'm not doing something right. I'm on a treadmill. And a lot of people hustle and are on a treadmill. They're just running in place. Because the moment they get off the treadmill, it won't work without them. And something that my more wiser, experienced partners will sometimes tell me is, Serge, if you're not building a conveyor belt, a system, a policies, a rules and regulations that, Serge, you don't want to come here next week? Here. Whoever's coming to sit in your desk can follow this and execute your job. He might not have my relationships or my spiel, but if you follow the rules, you'll be able to do my job.
Yeah.
Process orders, process this, do the studio bookings, check the spacer, check the this. So my ideal is that I want to finish building this business. It's all about work smarter, not harder. I've worked hard for many, many years. And anytime you start a new business, you have to work hard.
Right.
But if you're not working hard towards working smart, you ain't doing shit. So if a year from now I'm still here working 80 hours and I didn't do something right with this business, a year from now I should be building my next business. And for me, it's going to be something that interconnects to it. So it might be media based, it might be a management company, I might build a bigger studio. Just continue. I think every 5-10 years I've turned the page. But now having this set as a financial legacy for me, that I can live off Colorworks and I can afford to continue to do what I love. And that's to do international business. The girl that I have now in my life is heavily getting me to see that we do a lot of mentorship programs. We've been doing different mentorship programs here with kids, and it felt great. It felt good to talk to kids. It felt good to influence them and give them different inspiration and say, hey, I'm a kid from the hood, raised with no father. My dad was this, now in jail, and look at me, I'm here now. You know, and I've had the luck of being around so much great talent and the wisdom to shut my mouth and listen. You know, 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth, look and listen more than you talk. And when I come around wise motherfuckers, I shut my mouth. And when I come around people that I feel that need the light, I try to provide it. No one's perfect. But these mentorship programs have forced me to become a better teacher. I'm gonna start mentorship programs on how to use a camera, even if the basics of a camera, the basics of aperture, ISO, the basics of directing, the basics of DPing, the basics, just understanding the different jobs in multimedia. And part of my speech there is, guys, girls, you don't always have to be the rapper or the basketball player or the man. You see me? You see the guy over there with the camera? He's got a job that's important. You see the guy in the room that's gonna edit that film? He's got a job that's important. You see the girl in the makeup room that's getting ready? She's got a job that's important. There are so many jobs in multimedia that don't require you being number one.
Right.
Everybody wants to be number one, but there's only one slot for it. So we have to learn how to be team players. And if we go after a team play, you can end up being number one. But when you only aim at the target and only one slot can fill, you're only opening yourself up for disappointment. Keep desiring, you're gonna keep suffering.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I love mentoring these kids because I'll be honest, I hadn't done it, and it felt great to see all these kids, and then all these kids asking me questions afterwards, and everybody wanted my card, and I really would have been a gazillionaire by now. My mom always said, you gave away too much free studio time, you gave away too many free videos, you gave away too many free things. I have. That's been me my entire life. And people.
But that's what's allowed you to be here.
That's probably why I'm still here.
Yeah.
Because had I been another way, it wouldn't be me, and I wouldn't be here.
You wouldn't have built the relationship.
Right. And then, to our parents, to our loved ones, to our wifeys, like, yo, you're not gonna charge him. You're giving him free studio. You're gonna print that shirt for free. Oh, you're gonna do this. Like, yeah. And I do it to this day, to this week, to an hour ago, and I probably always will. We do have to.
But that's why you win.
That's why I'm still here.
Yeah.
A win is a win. Like saying a new business is new business, but to me, maintaining is important. So as much as I want new business, to me, I say a lot with my team, guys, if we maintain our customers, we're good. Maintenance is big because there's so much competition that they keep coming back to us, that I have 10 guys that always shoot videos of me and they always come back to me. That says a lot about me. But if I'm always looking for the next new guy and ignoring my database of loyal customers, I'm not really building anything. I'm just getting new customers, ticking them off, and they're out. What am I creating? A bad reputation.
Right.
So, I'm definitely into quality over quantity, and I'm a definite believer that maintenance is just as important as sprouting new business in any aspect of life, whatever you see it. Maintain our clients, repeat business. And again, I see myself dying in New York. I love New York. I love the US. And in the opportunity of traveling so many countries when it was in my tour days, traveling so much of the US in my phone card days, and there's some beautiful cities in America. There's some beautiful cities in the South. There's some beautiful cities like San Diego, like Seattle,
but there's nothing like
Salt
New
Lake
York.
City, but there's nothing like New York. And for people that say, well, Miami's Miami, and LA is like Miami and New York, to together, and
Neither of them in New York.
it's not New York. And
No.
at one point, everybody left New York. All my boys that were designers, there was a year that half my crew left to New York because New York got expensive to live in. Niggas was fucking up, and 5 of my boys went and put barbershops in Miami. They're doing fucking really well. New York niggas win in Miami, right?
Right.
5 of my
Because
guys.
it's a different DNA.
Right.
Yeah.
And even girls. I don't know if back in the day used to go to Miami, South Beach, and goes, oh man, I love the way you talk, man. You New York niggas just, oh man. And then we get a girl from LA and we're like, wow, man. Or a girl from the South, I love the South. Or a girl from London, I love the accent. I think that we're intoxicated and intrigued by what's exotic. Mm-hmm. And that's why people are like, yo, my shirt's Italian. Like this fallacy of it being exotic and why people love foreign cars and Jaguar's made in America, it's a Ford, relax. If people take a look at it, they become disconnected. But there's this fallacy of things that are exotic. So I love to travel, but there's no city in the world like New York.
Right.
Period.
London's close.
London, I mean, again,
But it's not New York.
What industry?
It doesn't have the same
If you're in the fashion,
pulse.
you may say. If you're into film, you may say, well, Hollywood is it's amazing. If you're in fashion, but have you been to Japan? If you're into, have you been to Italy, to Milan? My man got a showroom. So depending on what field you're in, yes, there's a lot of countries and cities that can tattle or even trump New York. But as a collective,
Right.
as a whole, I tell people I'm from Queens. The most multicultural city in the world. Snapple fact. Per square capita, Queens is the most multicultural ethnic city. That means that on my block I have an Indian kid, an Irish kid, a Colombian kid, a Puerto Rican kid, a Jew, all on one block. Per square cap.
Yeah.
So to be from Queens or be from New York and be racist it means that your parents inculcated you. Because there was no way that you weren't playing with everybody
right.
growing up as kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that that's a luxury. And I would love for my kids to grow up in New York, maybe even in Queens, and then find themselves and then find their way. I'd love to establish international business, create mentorship programs, and my long-term dream is to create a youth center in New York with the YMCA. And a youth center where I can create programs where I directly teach kids how to engineer, produce, do all the things that'll keep them off the street. And I had a friend of mine do it in Newark, and I do a lot of stuff in Newark because Newark is very impoverished. That he directly built a youth center and had Bloods and Crips working on songs in these youth centers that were outside beefing. And in these youth centers, he directly, indirectly correlated and brought down the crime rate in that neighborhood. And if you could do it on a small scale, you could do it on a large scale.
Right.
It was a guy named Tito Graham, shout out Tito Grahams, who finally moved out of Newark. Great guy. And many years ago, he inspired me with that story. And it stayed in me. Like, damn, this nigga built this thing and fucking had all these gangs in there. And through knowledge and through the passion. Because what supersedes our ego as men and colors and is passion and dreams. You want to be a singer, you want to be a rapper, you want to be a producer, you want to be, all these things in entertainment. And to create a center where the tools are there and the knowledge and wisdom are there, suddenly that passion supersedes the passion of what color and what black
right.
and we're making music together.
Right.
And it's a fallacy. There's a lot of Bloods and Crips and there's Latin Kings that get along. People think that it's like beef on sight. No,
right.
It's not like that anymore. So these youth center dreams that I have, by building this, are closer
right.
to reality. These youth center dreams now that I mentor kids here is closer. And that's my vision in the next few years. But I would love to die upstate New York, man. I love New York, and Colorworks is made in New York 100%.
Well, listen, I love it, and I'm probably with you. I'll be dying upstate too.
Yeah. What do you like upstate? Like, I'm just curious, what little city have you looked at?
I really like the Kingston to Woodstock to Saugerties triangle.
Right. My sister loves Woodstock.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in Sullivan County, which is a little further west. But I love that triangle right there.
It's dope.
Yeah.
It's dope. That's where it is. What I will do is probably now that PA and the Poconos is pro-green, is buy a little land in PA.
It's gonna be legal here soon enough.
Yeah.
Soon
Yeah,
enough.
but I mean, buying land to grow in New York is gonna be like, it's gonna be crazy.
No, it's not, because you go upstate.
Right. So
Yeah.
it'll come.
It'll come.
But I think it's gonna take some time. So for you guys that are looking to grow, PA is ready to go. PA is ready to go.
Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you coming out here and building.
So much of the story is just dope. Like just the hip hop history, having lived it.
Thank you, big bro.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. Anytime,
Absolutely.
it's in the works, baby.
Cool.